Katie wasn't a beauty in their school. She was sturdy like an apple, with a hedgehog of light hair like a boy's. Earlier, Katie had tried to tie her hair into ponytails with rubber bands and clips, but it turned out to be a thankless task. The hair constantly tangled, the clips got lost, and the ponytails always slipped down. In general, Katie gave up on girly hairstyles, went down 2 floors to her neighbor, Aunt Kathy, they shared the same name, and asked her to cut it short. Aunt Kathy worked in a hair salon. So short, like a gamine? They'll mistake you for a boy. Well, so what? Katie waved her hand. I was never going to be Cinderella anyway, and certainly not like that one, Rapunzel. At least this way my hair won't get in my eyes. And the next day, Katie came to class looking like a boy of average height with a short haircut. Katie wasn't popular with the boys in their school, and certainly not with the handsome guys that all the girls sighed over, not like their long-legged, graceful Elena with long hair like that very Rapunzel. Elena's eyes were an amazing turquoise shade, like the sky over the Mediterranean Sea. At such a young age, Elena was already a model in a famous modeling house. Her friend, the fragile, big-eyed Nina, was involved in synchronized swimming at the Sports Palace. She already had a whole shelf lined with trophies, and part of the wall above her desk hung with medals. Rita, the figure skater who looked like an elf, also had plenty of awards. They even wrote a big article about her in a glossy magazine, a full spread. Earlier, the girls had been friends as a foursome, Katie, Rita, Elena, and Nina. But then they gradually started drifting apart. The awkward Elena, who looked like a pair of compasses, suddenly became a beauty, outgrew her crooked teeth with braces from the orthodontist, and shone with a flawless, star-like smile. Videos started inviting her to shows and various shoots. Nina turned into an athlete and became popular, just like Rita. But the most hurtful thing was that the girls started turning up their noses, boasting about their exclusivity. Katie was just an ordinary schoolgirl without special talents, good grades in studies, and that was fine. No bright, memorable appearance, no slender, girlish figure, no athletic skills. Katie even swam mediocrely, and she hated music with all her heart. But there was something in her that you couldn't see at first glance. Katie was genuine, without pretense. On September 1st, new kids appeared in their class. The slender Sophie, a modest and quiet girl, and her brother, who looked nothing like her, Kyle. And Danny didn't look like a track athlete. Kyle and Danny were like two peas in a pod, both tall, muscular, and surprisingly good-natured and friendly, like children, although the kids came to this school from different cities. On September 1st, Katie looked like a tomboy, especially against the backdrop of her classmates in white blouses and pleated skirts. And here, the gray mouse Katie, non-remarkable, not shining with talents, suddenly stole these handsome guys from the other girls, even from the model beauty Elena, even from the swimmer Nina with her pile of medals. It wasn't just friendship, it was a kind of unity. All the kids had complicated family situations. Danny's parents had recently divorced, his father had an apartment at the university, and his mistress was his graduate student. Danny thought that after school he'd go to the university where his father worked to continue the family dynasty of scientists, but due to the changes, Danny's mother decided to change not only the school for her son, but even the city. They moved, and that's how Danny ended up in this school. Kyle and Sophie had endured a terrible tragedy. Their parents died in the mountains in an avalanche. They didn't even have graves. The twins were left with their grandfather, a retired colonel. Only this helped the unfortunate grandfather bear the terrible grief, his grandchildren. The strict colonel loved his grandchildren very much, but had no intention of spoiling them. Early rises, mandatory morning runs in any weather, pull-ups, cold showers, regimen. Well, Katie was an unplanned child in a family of musicians who were always touring cities and villages. Her grandma looked after Katie and also Aunt Kathy from the 3rd floor, the hairdresser. Her parents even transferred money to her card for the troubles. But actually, Katie looked after herself. She learned early to be independent, to cook breakfast and dinner for herself, to wash clothes, to clean the house, and she studied well, though no one forced her. And so it happened that the kids bonded to each other like kindred spirits. The year flew by like one moment. The last bell rang, exams were behind them, Their group decided not to go to the prom. What was there to do? Admire Elena batting her eyelashes and bragging that she's flying to a show in Tokyo? Ooh and awe over Nina and Rita's handful of medals? Nah, enough of school, Katie declared, and suggested the four of them go to a tourist base to ride boats. Sophie didn't object. She accepted the authority of the spirited Katie and the confident guys. Who from the adults is going with you? The grandfather frowned when the kids told him about the idea. Grandpa, we're already adults. We finished school, Kyle protested. Look, Sonya's getting married and no one says a word. Can't we go have fun on the river? I say a word, from bad to worse. Now you've arranged it so no one goes anywhere. In general, the kids somehow convinced the grandfather to let them go to the tourist base and solemnly promised to all watch over each other. Danny's mom didn't object to the trip. After all, the guy was grown up and he'd found good friends, and she had her own personal life. Katie, as usual, no one forbade anything. Her parents had long been on tour again. Grandma just needed, "Be careful, kiddo." Katie promised she would. Whose idea it was first to sail down the river for several days is hard to say. The group rented a wooden cabin smelling of resin, threw canned goods into backpacks, and went wandering the picturesque surroundings. They went to get acquainted with the river. They decided to go to the boat station tomorrow. The youth was letting loose. Freedom intoxicated them. No one to shake a finger at another bottle of beer or a pack of cigarettes. They all fell asleep toward morning. But the next day didn't go well. The weather turned bad. They had already sailed a good distance when the sky was covered with clouds. The wind picked up, and suddenly a downpour started, cold like in October. Water lashed their faces, poured under their clothes, and everyone got soaked to the skin immediately. It seemed salvation was close. Get to the shore, pull out the boat, and hide under a tarp to wait out the bad weather. But it wasn't so simple. The shore was steep and slippery. They couldn't get out of the water. The kids barely managed to put on life jackets, and just in time, a wave flipped the boat. Katie didn't swim that well, but she stayed afloat and could have made it to shore. Kyle was almost carried away by the current. Good thing he grabbed a snag sticking out of the water. Sophie somehow managed to scramble ashore, but Danny didn't manage to fasten his vest, and the water covered him. Only God knows where Katie got the strength to swim to the rock, dive, and grab Danny by the collar. It was hard for her. The water blinded her. Black waves crashed over her head. The cold water cramped her legs. Good thing she held tightly to his jacket. Getting to shore, Katie pulled off her wet vest that was hindering her and started shaking the guy. She turned him on his stomach, put her knee under him, then pounded his back until he started coughing. Frightened Sophie fussed around them, slipping but unable to help. She wished she had first aid skills, but she hadn't learned them and now regretted it. Finally, Kyle reached them, looking like a demon from the underworld, covered in mud up to his eyes. Danny was already sitting on the ground, coughing and spitting. He'd swallowed water. Katie stood up abruptly. "Everyone alive? What a great adventure we had. But no point sitting here. We need to find people or we'll all freeze and croak." As the most confident, Katie led her squad onward. She had no idea where she was leading them because she didn't know where to go. It was dark and cold. They didn't know the road. They had no choice. Soon it got completely dark. Not a spark anywhere. No lantern in the distance. No glimmer of the moon in the sky. All four stumbled along, dreaming of a can of stew that had sunk. At least one for four. Or even better, a mug of hot tea. They could do without the stew. Suddenly, in the distance, a flicker of fire appeared, and everyone hurried toward it. If there's fire, there's warmth and people. The drenched swimmers hoped they'd be warmed by the fire, fed, given shelter, ideally taken back to the tourist base in the morning. They hurried, stumbling in the wet grass, and ran again. It seemed the fire was already close, but it was like enchanted. It just wouldn't get nearer. Then the kids stopped, frozen in horror. Sophie slipped again and plopped into the wet grass. There was the fire. Over the flames smoked a cauldron stirred with a ladle by a creepy-looking old man with gray, shaggy beard and in such an enormous jacket that it resembled a tent. If Sophie was scared, Katie decided that on this creepy night she had nothing left to fear, even if it was a zombie from the underworld. She approached closer and casually asked, "Hello, Grandpa, can we warm up?" The others greeted in a ragged chorus, approaching behind. The tall old man shrugged, continuing to stir the brew in the cauldron. "Come on in, since you've come." The guests immediately huddled by the warmth, extending their frozen hands. The boldest of them, Katie, started telling the old man that they had just finished school and decided to go on a boat trip down the river. The unwelcoming host didn't say a word. "Well, thanks for that. At least he didn't chase us away," Katie muttered. He got up silently, went into the hut, rattled around, and returned with a stack of dishes. Then he served the unexpected guests a thick, aromatic porridge with mushrooms. No one needed inviting. Everyone set to work with spoons. The old man frowned, then fished a bottle from his enormous pocket, uncorked it, and extended it first to Katie, deciding she was their leader. "Frozen? Take a swig." The girl didn't stand on ceremony. She took it and swigged, then coughed until tears came. "Ugh, what horror," she reported through the cough. "Is that sulfuric acid?" "Drink up, we don't keep junk," grumbled the hospitable grandpa. The kids each took a swig, even Sophie. Their heads immediately buzzed and spun, but a blissful warmth spread in their chests. Katie got bold enough to repeat the nasty dose and coughed again. "Ugh, strong stuff." It was the turn of the silent hermit to speak. "The devil brought you here, but I can't chase you away. Honestly, I'm not really ready to see people. I'm not prepared. My name is Michael. I wasn't always a hermit like now. There were times I was a boss, had a big business and a house full of everything. I wouldn't buy office suits cheaper than $3,000, drove luxury foreign cars. I loved it, was proud when I bought it, then got used to it, indulged, got satiated." Then he sighed sadly. "Then I got sick. A young, strong man, never remembered a sneeze in my life, and here I fall like a rag doll, nosebleeds, fainting. Got checked, cancer. That's how it is. Money's crap, even big money, if your life slips through your fingers like sand and you can't get back a single grain." "And what?" Katie asked, expecting the continuation of the story because he fell silent. "And that's it. A year ago, they gave me the diagnosis that horrifies everyone. They offered chemo, but honestly, it's probably useless. My partners immediately started carving up the business. Friends grabbed valuable things like gypsies, cars, equipment. I gave everything away and headed to the mountains to a healer. Anyway, I was going to die in a couple of months, and the glass... But I'm not dying." Then 2 more passed, and then he told me, "Enough dying for you. Start living." And I started living. True, without people, I still need to learn to live with them, but it doesn't work yet. And when I'll be ready, God knows. "You didn't learn with people, but you learned with yourself, turns out?" Katie asked. Kyle poked her in the side with his fist and hissed, but the old man was taken aback, thought, then sent the kids to sleep in the hut. "Settle in. My cot is spacious for 1, but tight for 4. But if head to toe, 2 by 2, you'll fit somehow." "And you, Michael," Katie didn't let up. "And I need to think about a lot." The exhausted tourists slept like logs. The hermit thought until dawn about what the wise girl Katie had said, stirring the fire, then got scissors and a razor and started tidying himself up. The kids, squinting at the bright sun and stretching, looked around. Where had the old man gone? The weather promised to be great, but they had sunk the boat and the backpack with provisions, and even tossed the life jackets somewhere on the shore. Their journey had come to an end. Suddenly they heard someone's voice. "Well, kids, wash up, have a drink, and let's saddle up to the village. I've arranged a car, they'll take you to your tourist base." The kids were stunned. Instead of the shaggy old man in the enormous robe, they saw a young, clean-shaven blonde in jeans, sneakers, and a leather jacket. Katie whistled. "I might be wrong, of course, but you're that same grandpa from yesterday. Is that you, Michael?" He just laughed. Then they walked to the village, and Michael periodically caught the gaze of this girl who looked like a boy, and she blushed, though he blushed too. Then they got in, said goodbye to the unexpected savior, and the car pulled onto the road. At the tourist base, the kids expected a hefty bill. They feared they couldn't pay it. What was their surprise when they were told they owed nothing? "He was like a guardian angel for all of us. He helped so much," Kyle exclaimed. "There are no chance meetings," Katie said mysteriously and blushed. Sophie, as usual, stayed silent. What was there to say? It was all clear anyway. Danny's mom didn't even learn that her son had almost died that stormy day. She was getting married and convinced her son that she was doing it for him. She didn't even ask once how their trip went and why he returned so soon, and didn't even notice he came back empty-handed. "Danny, I'm doing it for you. It's better this way, right?" His mom convinced him, packing her things. "Now you'll have your own apartment. I'm moving in with Simon." He nodded sadly and went to his room, burying his head in the pillow so as not to hear his mom chirping on the phone that she was almost ready. Of course, who argues? It's better for him without a doubt. The grandfather noticed that Sophie and Kyle came home empty-handed and returned somehow quickly, but decided that's how it should be and commanded, "Company, rise," and dragged them for the morning run, then the cold shower. Everything went on as usual, and thank God. Grandma kissed Katie absent-mindedly, asked if her granddaughter had a good trip, if she was satisfied, and went back to watching her Mexican soap opera. She also didn't notice that Katie came without things and didn't show photos from the trip. Then her parents called from foreign tours and enthusiastically told how they had traveled, then cheerfully said goodbye, saying they sent Katie a package with fashionable things. "You'll be the most dressed up and fashionable with us." "Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. I'll be the most dressed up with you," Katie said into the silent phone and sighed. Their group entered the university, Katie in biotechnology, as she had long planned, Sophie in foreign languages. The guys didn't think long and joined Katie. What a good profession, in demand and profitable after all. And then it turned out that Danny and Kyle were in love with the same girl. With whom? With Katie, of course. Sophie was in love with Danny, and Katie said she wasn't in love with anyone and blushed. After getting diplomas, nothing changed. The guys pined for Katie, Sophie dreamed of Danny, and Katie still joked that her love hadn't come yet. Several years passed. On a news channel, they showed a story about successful businessmen. It was about Kyle and Danny. They gave an interview for the business section, telling how they organized a modern, in-demand business with minimal investments, which then grew into a well-known enterprise. Katie remembered well when the idea came to them to produce medicinal capsules, and over time the assortment expanded. Sophie corresponded with a small Chinese firm as a translator. Then Katie and Sophie flew to China to negotiate supplies and sign a contract. The four of them became co-founders of their company. They bought a small batch of raw materials at first. Katie told her friends she borrowed the money from her parents. They were going to buy a house on the seaside in Bulgaria, but promised to wait for the repayment. Then they bought and reconstructed a mini factory on the outskirts of the city, brought in equipment, and soon launched production of capsules. Flying to their foreign partners, a delegation consisting of two 2-meter-tall men and two petite women always aroused genuine interest and curiosity, especially since one of them spoke Chinese fluently. Danny didn't wait for Katie and finally proposed to Sophie. She was happy. The four continued to be friends, especially since they were united by a common business. Once, Katie was flying on a plane after another trip to foreign colleagues, and her whole life flashed before her eyes like on a home movie screen. She recalled their school graduation, the trip to the tourist base, and their sailing when everyone almost died, the meeting with the strange, gray, shaggy old man who then turned out to be a young blonde, helped organize a car to take them to the tourist base, and their families didn't even notice that the travelers returned suspiciously quickly. Then they entered and studied, but never forgot their adventure. Katie couldn't resist dragging her friends, as she said, to one memorable place. "But we have tickets. We're flying to the Dominican Republic," Sophie reminded. "So you'll change them. Fly there another time. No problem." Katie was, as always, in her element, commanding everyone, and everyone obeyed. Danny whistled. "Wow, and I guess there's no getting out of it?" "No," Katie shook her head, smiling. "We have a meeting with youth planned." "Okay, then I won't be alone with a girl," Kyle declared. "Finally," Katie rejoiced. "Time to bring your girl to us." "What, in the morning?" "In the morning." Two black SUVs set off toward that mysterious meeting place. In the first car were Katie at the wheel and Sophie in the back as passengers. In the second, Kyle with his girl, Nellie. They stopped at a gas station. Nellie disdainfully stepped in her elegant little shoes, pouting mannerly. Couldn't we choose a more decent place for the trip? Had to drag to this dusty hole? Katie frowned and looked questioningly at Kyle. He didn't understand what she wanted to say, but didn't reprimand the girl. However, Nellie didn't let up. I suspect you can't buy decent food here because that dump near the gas station can't be considered a place where they serve food. You could get poisoned there. There's a hotel and cafe further down the highway, judging by the map. But the beauty was starting to irritate him. At the Capri Hotel, the girl's complaints only gained momentum. And this is the whole menu? Boiled chicken? They must be mocking. And wine? What does white and red mean? And she switched to the waitress. Girl, not only couldn't I get this miserable menu from you, now I can't get water without gas. The frightened girl, who was run off her feet serving customers, apologized to an elderly couple and rushed for the water for Nellie. Katie couldn't take it. She remarked to Nellie, "Can't you be politer with people? Today there's really a rush. All tables are occupied. Elderly customers are less important clients than you. You solicit I apologize that this slowpoke slept on the go?" Nellie snorted. Well, Katie finally got to her. With a honeyed voice, she turns to Kyle, completely unceremoniously pointing her finger at Katie as if an inanimate object. "Kai, what did you drag here into decent company? Rein in this bore, please. And we still have to drive, and I'm already at my limit, afraid I'll smack her in the face." Katie gasped with indignation. "What? Bore in the face? I'm Kyle's fiancé, and who are you commanding here?" The frightened waitress ran up and put glasses of water on their table, but in her haste mixed up and put it in front of Katie. Sophie and Danny just silently watched this absurd spectacle. They had no words. Kyle, who was already turning red in spots, gritted his teeth and asked the waitress to call a taxi. "Thanks, girl. My companion is leaving now. Driving away, more precisely." Nellie froze with her mouth open, and Katie imperturbably sipped from the glass in front of her and shrugged. "Kai, what? You didn't stand up for me?" Nellie was stunned. "Nothing to say? Sorry, I was wrong. Shouldn't have taken you. You don't know how to behave among people." "Sorry? And you yourself? You all?" The beauty couldn't find words, but the waitress approached the table again and apologized. "Sorry, your taxi has arrived." Nellie irritably grabbed her purse and clacked her heels hurriedly out. Kyle didn't go after her, but asked to pay for this trip from his card. He's not a bore after all. Everyone lost their appetite. They drove in silence. Only before that, Sophie said they'd switch to Kyle's car. Katie didn't object. "Yes, that'll be better. You're right." "Won't you confess where we're going?" Sophie asked. "We'll arrive soon and find out." Katie smiled mysteriously and got behind the wheel. "What a surprise! This is that place. Can't be," Danny exclaimed. "Like we've returned to our youth. Even the hut is preserved. Seems like it's been cared for," Kyle said thoughtfully. "Would be great to see that grandpa who turned out to be a young man," Sophie said, looking around. "I don't recognize this place at all. Kill me. But I remember the grandpa. Wonder if he's alive." "Alive and thriving," Katie smiled. "And how do you know?" her friends asked in chorus. The girls set the table, taking out containers with food, cold cuts, and drinks. "Poor Danny, I'll tell. In general, I loved you guys from the first day and forever, but like brothers. And her like a little sister," she hugged her shoulders. "Our business we opened not with my parents' money. They didn't give me a penny, though they could have. I came across a business magazine and there was a photo of our blonde Michael, so I rushed to him, where ours didn't perish, bought a ticket, flew, came to his office. Security didn't let me in without an appointment, of course. Had to wait until he left the office building, important like a king. But he was so glad to see me. We talked, in short, not my parents gave the money, but Michael. All this time I fly to the capital besides business trips and to him too. We meet. I love him. No, not like that. We love each other." Kyle smiled both sadly and affectionately. "I suspected so. Katie waited for you, and you waited for another." The train arrived on schedule. On the platform stood a tall, excited man with white hair, with a bouquet of long white roses. Passengers glanced at him curiously. Wonder who the lucky one is he's waiting for. Such an imposing, such a striking blonde. Probably an actor. A not tall, slender woman with a short haircut stepped out of the car. He carefully embraced her and handed the bouquet. "Well, shall we go? And your luggage?" "All mine is with me." And there's your car. You're still true to your habits, Mike. Michael smiled and led Katie to the car. I'm always true to my habits. You're right.